First up, we're looking for approval of the agenda.
We accept the agenda.
Motion and support. Any changes or corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next up are public comments. Each individual state your name and you have 3 minutes to address the board. Public comment. Any public comment? Hearing none. Next up are the minutes of the May 13th meeting. Looking for approval. Doc, I think
Oh, I can't do it.
you can't vote on this committee. Save your votes for next Tuesday. So Darius, you moved. Tony, did you second the motion? Okay. Any changes or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next are appointments. I believe we have 2 with no applicants. And unless there's a nomination from the floor for Emergency Management Advisory Council or the Region 2 Planning Commission, we'll hold it over and continue to advertise for it. Takes us to the JC Dot engineering reimbursement, and I don't see anybody from JC Dot here, but this appears to be a formality.
He sent me a text just a minute ago, so he's on his way up.
So I'd be willing to bet all the commissioners on the committee reviewed the packet.
There he goes. You're at the.
Hey, how's that for timing?
You're at the
Yeah.
podium already.
So Chris, I was just explaining that this engineering reimbursement, I think, is a formality for us to be obviously reimbursed because we have, as I recall, 4 engineers on staff?
Correct. But I have a 20-minute presentation prepared for you.
You can start that in about 15 minutes. Or less. This gets sent to the full board for vote, and it's a $10,000 reimbursement from the Michigan Transportation Fund. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. See how slick that works, Chris?
That's pretty slick. I like that.
Michigan Avenue Bridge contract, a little more complicated.
It is. We're happy about this, that it's finally done. You may recall a year or 2 ago, I've given updates to some of you about the problems with the railroad, but that's all been cleared up now. Hats off to our engineering team for working closely with MDOT to get that done. But long story short, the bids were open Friday. You'll see an estimated cost of $3.4 million. The good news is that the bids came in at 2.7, so we are tickled pink, and that'll save us a little bit on our 5% match for the project.
So Chris, that'll change the numbers obviously that we're looking at in the explanation. Our amount is listed here as 172.6.
Correct.
So it'll be less than that, correct, or not?
Yes, that's for construction costs. There are always on bridges the engineering costs and the inspection costs, which are all borne by the matching agency.
And if I recall correctly, the issue for some time was liability with the project, and you got by that hurdle satisfactorily for us?
We did. They wanted everybody they could find on the hook forever, and one of the big sticking points is they wanted the engineering consultant on the hook forever at unlimited liability, so we got that negotiated out successfully.
Okay, so this goes to the full board, Tony? Tony, can you use your mic, please, if you have one there? There you go.
Has the design ever been completed for this bridge?
Yes, it has. We needed to do that many months ago in order to get the bids let through MDOT, so the contractors looked at the plans and specifications in order to submit their bids.
Okay, and did MDOT put this out for bid?
Yes.
Or did JDOT?
We always work with MDOT to put out bids for grant projects, grant-funded projects. That's a requirement, actually.
Okay. The environmental investigation, were there any environmental issues seen at that site?
Do you recall, Angie?
No, there weren't.
No, there weren't. But there's always a review of that, yeah.
Right. The construction engineering, who's going to perform that, JDOT or MDOT?
We're still evaluating that right now. We currently don't have the resources, but in July, we're hoping to bring to you a proposal after we finish our analysis. We think it may be prudent for ourselves to do it.
To do it in-house?
Yeah, it might be, yeah, we feel it's prudent, but it's going to require some FTEs to make that happen. But our workload is such that we feel we can support that for quite some time and probably save about half the costs. So on a bridge like this, it might be $180,000 to $200,000 in consulting fees. We think we could do it in-house for about $80,000 to $100,000.
Okay, thank
So
you.
stay tuned for that information.
Okay. Darius?
Just one quick question. In the event that we're not able to do the work ourselves, are there any local companies that could do this type of work, or would we have to outsource outside of the county?
There are some firms with, I think, a branch office here, and we always evaluate that closely and carefully.
Okay.
Do we know?
I don't know of any smaller local that could do it.
Bridge inspection is a unique niche within the engineering and design and construction inspection arena. So, but we would look at that closely. We're not aware of any off the top of our head, though. So, yes, I will.
Okay, so if we're all done with questions, we'd be looking for a motion to send it to the full board.
Move we send this to the full.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Chris, J.C. Parks, Mike Levine, Lakeland's Trail Extension.
We are working with our Parks Department on this project. I'll let Kyle give a quick overview of it. Basically, J.C. is serving as the sponsor for the grant application.
No, that's fine. So the board in February, I believe, approved the hiring of Manick Smith to do design engineering on this section of trail from the prison site basically to where the city trail ends at Monroe Street. So this was the next step. The goal of hiring Manick Smith was to get us in a position to be able to apply for grant funding. This would be the major source for this project. So we're to the point where there's 4 deadlines a year. This deadline that we're shooting for is at the end of June. And this is, the resolution is basically a requirement as part of the grant application. JDOT is the applicant because it requires to be an Act 51 agency.
Okay, commissioners, any questions of Kyle or Chris? Tony?
Your proposal is to go with Trail Alternative 1? Is that correct?
Yes, yep.
Trail Alternative 2 was $900,000 less expensive, the total project. As I understand, 30% of the total project cost is going to be paid for by the county?
By the county, but additional grants is the major source. There'll be some by the county, but there'll be additional grants as well.
Okay, so at the 30% stated in here, Trail Alternative 2 would cost us $522,000. Alternative 1 costs us $798,000. So we're going with the alternative that was $276,000 larger?
Yeah, that alternative one was the one that scored the best as far as they had a different scoring criteria for recreation, accessibility, all sorts of things. The state was a big fan of alternative 1 as well.
Is that money coming out of the parks budget?
Yes, some capital improvement funds from the millage, which was a big talking point as far as when the millage campaign was in progress. Connectivity to the statewide trail system was something that was a huge priority as part of that.
So this $798,000, our part of the project is being funded by the millage?
Probably not that amount, probably be closer to about $500,000 with the county's portion. Then there's additional grants from the DNR. There's some private funding.
Okay. annual maintenance cost to maintain this trail? Do you have a cost for that?
So a lot of it will go through existing, where people already mow typically, so there'll be some parts that we have to mow as well, but not a whole lot. There's some parts that go through consumers' property where they're actually going to not want us to mow a lot because they don't want people too far off the trail in certain areas near 94 and just to the south and to the north of 94. So there'll be some maintenance. There'll be some long-term maintenance as well as just similar to the Falling Waters Trail as far as seal cracking and things like that. But annually, we use seasonal casual staff to do our mowing and brush trimming. That's the type of maintenance it would be annually.
Okay, so if the existing staff have to take on additional area to maintain, is the cost for that in your operating budget? Or is that coming out of the millage also?
It would be out of the operating budget, yes, which is funded by the millage.
Okay,
And the current operating budget is adequate to take on this additional maintenance?
Yes, it is.
Darius?
So I'm looking at the feasibility report,
I'd still like to speak.
and I'm looking at, well, I guess just in essence, is it fair to say that you've done, or that your department has done the necessary homework in making sure that we can afford it, making sure that we can keep up with the maintenance and all of these things?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Chairman Chatwa?
I'd like to remind commissioners there are no divisions of funds. Once a millage is collected, while it is a special set-aside to go to the Parks Division, the money is then allocated through our budget process, and you are involved in the creation of that budget. After the millage is collected and it's returned to the parks, it is general parks funds. We can spend it on Keeley Park, we can spend it on the trails, we can spend it on lakes, we can spend it on other items and parks within Jackson County. It's not money that's got to be separated, that we only use 75 cents of the millage and 25 cents of our general fund. It becomes the park's general fund. I'm getting a little annoyed by the division that's going on here with this dollars. It's not something that gets separated. It's going to be put into the budget, and you'll get to vote on it, as with most things around here, a half dozen times, and get to decide whether it goes forward. I'd like you to be aware of that, though, that it's the park's budget, period. It's not the village budget and the park's general fund budget and the capital fund budget. We put the money in the millage, the parks staff puts together a budget, they come back to us here, and then to Michael. Michael then presents the budget to us, and we vote on it. That's how this is working. We shouldn't be trying to micromanage these dollars and try to figure out if I got that 30 cents out of the general fund or did it come from the millage. It's the park's budget. Thank you, David.
So, Chris, this is the actual grant application. If the grant is approved, then it'll come back and we'll have other things to approve on it, correct?
Yes, you'll see it in our updates, but you'll also
Great.
get an MDOT contract. And Mr. Chairman, if I could address Commissioner Beer's question
Sure.
a little further. On page 25 of the feasibility study, you'll see a trail alternative comparison matrix, which basically scores 4 different criteria: constructability and cost. Cost is only one of 4 factors. So as you can see in that chart, the alternative number 1 in the red scored the best overall. So we try to weigh and balance all kinds of factors, as Kyle mentioned, to determine the best option. Also, to your question on maintenance, on average, it's about $2,500 to up to maybe $10,000 a year, depending on if you're putting an adequate sinking fund in for future resurfacing. But from snow removal to mowing to care of the asphalt surface, the average statistically is around $2,500 to $10,000 per mile. And the bottom line is we'll make it so. We'll make it happen in the future budgets, and that has been factored in. We were involved in the review of the feasibility study, and using what we know in the industry, everything here makes perfect sense to us. And I want to remind commissioners that non-motorized projects are a huge priority in our county vision, and that's materializing quickly with the non-motorized plan that we're working on currently. Angie and I just had another stakeholder meeting, or steering committee meeting on Friday to discuss these things, and this fits and plugs and plays with that very well.
Chris, I've got just a couple of comments. One is that it isn't always about what's cheapest. When it comes to something like this, it's not a transportation or a road that we're building in a straight line. It needs to be, well, it's a grant application for one thing. It has to be appealing, and we want people to use it, so more has to go into it than just the cost, although that's one element of it. I also don't mind the questions that we have here, but it's a learning curve. We have some new commissioners. A lot of this is new to them, and I would encourage them, if you have deep questions, to reach out to Chris or to Kyle or Jeff, and you can likely get most of those answered ahead of time. Questions here are fine, as long as we don't get too far into the weeds. But so again, this is a grant application that we're looking to approve, and it does need to go to the full board. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. JC monthly report. Thanks, Kyle.
Vaughn, and I realize this is
I
going...
recognize the chair.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Chris, on your matrix, trail alternative comparison, I can understand the construction, bicycle, and dollars. What's the handshake symbol?
I think workability with the community, plug and play. This has been a while since I last looked at this. Let me look.
Thank you.
Handshake. Yeah, I'll verify that and let you know if it's different, but I'm pretty sure it's, environmental factors blended with community input, basically stakeholders providing input through the discussion process. A low score would mean people don't want it. I'm up? Okay.
You're up. Monthly report.
All right, monthly report. We have all the time in the world, so we could go through this in excruciating detail.
That depends which world you live in.
Well, the first project I would like to talk about briefly, and that's Moon Lake Bridge. It's a second page after the title slide. We're happy to report things are moving again, and we did have a hiccup where there was no progress seen for a little bit of time as we worked behind the scenes with the factory. It's precast units, so I don't know, Angie, if you want to talk about that. We're on target for a July completion at this point. Go ahead.
It's open to traffic July. It won't be completely completed, but traffic can use it in July is what we're aiming for right now. But the hiccup that we had was, as you guys recall, when we had public meetings, this bridge, it was very important to the community that we had the facade that they wanted. It's the cobblestone facade. When the forms came off in the plant and was shipped out to the site, the appearance of the facade, it was dimpled and it looked horrible. So we've been working on a fix for that. It's because we don't want to have a paint that peels off for maintenance, so we've been working with the producer and our testing company to make sure that the fix for that is proper for the low maintenance in the long term of that bridge. And then also we had one wing wall that was about 1% off when we placed it, so it was tipping towards the structure, so water would have then went into that seam. So it was that was the longest process to figure out the best fix for that, whether it was pouring that whole wing wall and putting the project back a conservative amount of time, or if there was a fix that we could cut that, still have that cobblestone match out properly and have it look good. So we have approved that fix. They should be doing it. If they didn't do it Friday, the beginning of this week, the rain is not helping us, but that will be done, and then we'll analyze that and make sure that it looks good to our agency, and then they'll move forward with getting that all closed up and open to traffic. So that's the status of the Moon Lake Bridge. None of those were to do with the safety of the bridge. It was just all appearances, but we paid that company to produce a facade that would be appealing to the public, so we pushed them to get that right. Yeah. As Christopher said, we held their feet to the fire.
You want to highlight any of our other?
Sure. The Norville Road project is going well. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. Phase 1 has been, the base course of asphalt's been put on it, and the end of last week, we opened that to traffic and closed down Phase 2. We have not topped that because we did agree with the contractor to hold off and top everything at one time so there's no cold joints. But traffic is on Phase 1, the new road, and I think they're loving it. We've had some comments on how nice it is, and it should be completed before school starts, hopefully, as far as the paving. And then our other ones, we have our 2018 preventive maintenance project that has that list of roads that's in your packet. It's ongoing. A number of those roads have been paved. We have had a few driveway complaints, just so you guys are aware. Our agency did some wedging before we did the preventive maintenance paving, which caused a little bit of drop-off out there. So we're getting shoulder gravel on and gravel in driveways as quick as possible to help the residents out there. And then our local projects that are happening right now, Spring Arbor and Summit, we're all over the place working in those townships. And then Blackman Township should be going soon. The milling was happening in June, and we'll be paving out there. And I think that's it. Do you want me to cover CIR?
Sure. Talk about McCain.
So McCain was completed with the CIR project. We had a few hiccups, which I think we've talked to you guys about with our oil tanks, with shutoffs. But we made it through our first road. They will be paving that. I guess I don't have a date when they'll be paving that yet, but they moved on to Sandstone Friday and Saturday. Sandstone Road was their second road, and then they'll move to King Road, which is the road that we're doing the recycling on our dime, and then we're paving that all and doing the shoulders with federal aid. So it's an experiment with MDOT. They allowed us to do this. Typically, they want the road to be all done on the federal project. But because we can't do the recycling on a federal aid project and pay ourselves, they allowed us to do this and then resurface it with the federal aid dollars. So we will be working, Michigan Paving will pave that as soon as we're done recycling it for the federal aid, and then the MDOT will take care of the payments for that. The other engineering updates we have in there, the no passing zone that you guys approved.
Angie, can you answer a question for Steve?
Yeah.
So we go in, recycle, and then you're going to have Michigan Paving put a top course on? Is that what we're going to, a wear course?
For King Road?
Well, yeah, you were talking about
talked-
with the separation, with federal dollars and
Footing.
everything.
Yeah.
So you were going to end up with a recycled course underneath and then a wear course? Is that the idea?
King Road, actually, because of the traffic volumes, has, I think it's 4.5 inches, so it would be 2 courses of asphalt. But it's because of the high traffic volumes and truck volumes that we have on there. Originally, we had it set up, that's the one that went to MDOT letting, it came back high, so we pulled it and pulled out the crushing into the CIR. We had 6.5 inches of asphalt on it before. So we took off 2 inches, did the cold in place, and we have a greater structural number this way.
And Angie, the acronym CRI is our equipment.
Cold in place recycling,
Right, for the
sorry.
public, right.
Yes,
And then you're saying 4.5 inches of fresh asphalt on top of that?
on top of the cold in place recycling mat.
Super road.
And so the financing part of it, because the feds are willing to pay for, well, they pay for both, right?
No, the CIR portion, it costs too much to do the force account, so that will be on our dime. And then they're paying for everything else. So the traffic, the signs and everything that are out there for our guys, we're working in their work zone, but that's all federal aid funded. Shoulders, restoration, paving, mailboxes, that's all going to be on the federal aid project.
Good, thank you.
If I could add something. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add, just for some clarification, that they do the CIR, they always do something more on top of that, some kind of seal it, be it a, a couple inches of asphalt or something to seal it up.
And a chip seal works.
Chip seal would work
Yep.
as well, yes. So if King Road were a lower traffic road, out more rural, if you will, they could do the CIR and then just put a chip seal coat over it just to seal it and run on it.
So as you all know, our federal grant dollars are limited. So let's, we can't recall the number for King Road offhand, but let's say it's $2 million. If the CIR and/or the crush and shape was part of that project, as Angie alluded to, the prices are skyrocketing. So we'd have to shorten the project. We might only get done 1 mile. But because we're doing the work in-house, we can take the federal dollars and use that all for the asphalt paving. We do our part as match, essentially, and preparatory work for the project. And then, so we can get done, how long is that project? Do you know offhand? It's quite long, so we can get the whole stretch done. It's more bang for the buck for the community and a much better road for the long term for the community as well. So hats off to Angie and the engineering team, though, for working with MDOT, because heretofore the answer was, no, can't do that. But we met with them and talked it through, gave them assurances, and they were happy to work with us on this to allow us to do this work ahead of time. Because normally they want everything packaged with a bow tie for the contractor. So they trust us, is what I'm saying, which is great.
Good on questions? Okay.
All right, then the last few things I have is the no passing zone study will be completed the end of this month. They'll have it all wrapped up and delivered to our staff to start using for our pavement marking that we'll have the contractors do in July. I don't know when Jim Cooling has it set up. I think late July, if I remember correctly. Lawrence Road Mill and Resurface project was in the June let. It did come back high, so we have to get back to MDOT by tomorrow with what we're going to do. It was 30% over bid, and it's because it's a night paving job. If you remember when I brought it to you guys, I talked about that we were going to do night paving because of the airport. The asphalt prices came in at $90 and $130, I think, for approach work, which is very high. So we need to figure out if we want to justify the bid and accept it and pay that, or if we want to change it somehow and put it back through the letting. We have that right too. So the 10% is the threshold there. If it's over 10%, you have to justify. So we'll talk with Christopher this afternoon on that and figure that out and update you guys with our decision there. And the Robbins Road bridge deck was placed. We are placing gravel. The structure sits about almost 2 foot higher than the other structure because we use the pre-existing concrete abutments. It's a beautiful deck. We are filling, so we'll be putting it's a gravel road, so the approaches will just be raised. We're taking it back far enough so you don't feel it it's not going to be a speed hump when you're driving. We have a little bit of work that we'll have to do for the side slopes. So you'll see some barrels out there so traffic can start using it, but barrels will be on the side until we figure out whether we'll be doing like a retaining wall type thing or just riprap. I'm working with operations on that. So if it's not open yet, I know they're replacing gravel Friday, and it will be open soon to traffic.
Thank you, Angie. And hats off to you and the team for that. That's the first project that our crews have constructed using bridge decks. So I think it saved us about $500,000 over a new bridge.
When you say bridge deck, could you explain a little more? What is that?
Sure. Because the abutments were in great shape, the abutments are the foundations of the bridge. We were able to just basically take off the old deck, which was deteriorated. The beams, the substructure were also in bad shape. So the new timber structure was designed. Correct. But it's an engineered timber structure, so timber has come a long ways as a good construction material, a durable construction material for bridges, especially rural locations like this. And so it's a 50-year design life, possibly longer. It's preserved with copper naphthenate and pressure treated, and a beautiful, good-looking structure, actually. So if you get a chance to drive up there after it's all done, give us a week or two to finish guardrails and grading, as Angie alluded to.
And
And you
it's
can pave over it and everything, and it holds every loading that a normal bridge does.
It's a gravel road, Chris, correct?
Yep, it is a gravel road, and I just want to point out, the existing structure did not have guardrail. It was just, you wouldn't even really know it's there, concrete box that was, or bridge. This one does have a guardrail package over it. We chose to go with MDOT certified guardrail, so it will be a little different in case you guys have any questions from the public. There'll be guardrail, and then we're designing the ends of it, if it can just be the crash ends that go on the end sides of the bridge, or if we need to do some runs because of the slopes that we're creating because of the 2 foot we raised it, so.
No hindrance to farmers with the guardrails?
You mean width-wise?
Right.
It's actually much wider than the existing bridge was.
We learned our lesson
Yeah.
from 3 years ago or so, was it?
Oh, more than that. It was before me.
Hanover.
Yeah, that
It's before you. I know, it wasn't us.
It was actually when I
Yeah,
first
we
started
can move
working
on.
with Jackson.
we don't want to revisit that.
I was like, yeah,
It's
No, it wasn't.
pre-Angie.
it was way before me.
Yeah, we always, we follow best practices on those things. But what Angie's trying to say is we're incorporating safety into our projects, thinking about all those elements. And so, again, hats off to them. And it wasn't just sometimes counties can just throw up one single beam, but what she's talking about is a full safety, crash-tested guardrail system on the approaches. So it should help motorists, of course, errant vehicles, especially during inclement weather, but preserve the bridge in case there were an accident as well. On the operations side, I won't go through details other than we continue to move around the county and get our patching done. The first pass, we're going to do a second pass when that's finished. We went, I think Henrietta will be the last township, so we went counterclockwise this year. We're moving quickly up into the northeast corner of the county. And dust control, the rain is not helping us, so regrading and preparation is still going on for some of the roads. And just to bring everybody up to speed, we do dust control on our dime for the entire county for all gravel roads. That's a change we made, I think, a year or two ago, and it's been very positively received by the townships. We used to bill them for that, and that caused a little bit of a polka dot effect with some roads gravel controlled and some, or dust controlled and some not, which the point of dust control is safety, and we all love not having dust, but the second big thing that we care about is keeping the gravel material that we place on the road. It's preservation of the gravel roads and the material that we place. And last thing would be the ribbon cutting for the Ann Arbor Road Trail, coming up on June 20th, 11 a.m. Please mark your calendars. I hear that Chairman Shotwell has a great speech prepared. So, right. So it'll be at the bowling alley, correct? We've got some work going on there here in the next few days to fix the driveway there. It's just not aligned right, so.
It was pre-existing.
It was pre-existing, and we have decided to work with the DDA to get that fixed once and for all. We met with MDOT recently, got the permit approved. So forgive us if there's a little bit of restoration work that is fresh. That's why, because we wanted to do that right and put the bow tie on that particular area. So, any questions?
Commissioners, any more? Tony?
I don't know the details, but I'll get that to you. I'll follow up with an email to the,
Mr. Rattler.
yeah, I think it is. I don't know what the mowing had to do with that, but we will get that figured out. I think we had to wait.
I wonder if they could, yeah. Did you just say they had to wait?
Yeah. I think it was. We want you to know we're good environmental stewards. We pay attention to these kinds of things, but I can get you details on the timing and so forth.
But Dave can, Just quickly on the contracts and purchasing, I seen you mentioned majority of the townships, and I heard you say you were moving towards the northeast, but I don't see Leone mentioned. I wondered if they're on the timeline for the pothole patching crews.
We're skipping over Leone this year. No, I'm kidding.
Ah, boy.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes, they're next. Yeah.
That's a bad idea.
We're making it through. I also want you to know that in Leone, we're very excited to be recycling your first road. I think it's State Street, heading into the high school, Michigan Center High School there.
Yep.
So, do you know is it next month, July?
He's updating the schedule.
I think it's after Fairgrounds. We want to get it before school starts, obviously, but we're hoping to get people excited about doing roads in your township. So, yeah, we're doing potholes as fast as we can. Days like today really hurt our progress, to be honest, because our contractors are all gung-ho. They're doing a great job. But
I'm sorry, I was chuckling at your joke there, but what roughly when's Leone slated to?
roughly,
Yeah, just roughly, rough estimate.
I will finalize that and get an email to you.
Okay.
But I believe it'll be later this week.
Okay.
It's coming right up because they have been working down in the southeast corner for quite a while.
Okay.
There were more than we expected, and we're continuing on.
Thank you.
We have like an army of 30-some people privately contracted out there with two-person crews getting it done for us.
Okay, any additional questions of Chris? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up are the claims. They have made their way down, or were making their way down. If we can have a motion for them. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. There's no other minutes. The July reporting schedule is blank. Takes us back to public comments. Hello, public. Again. No public comment. Committee member comments. Tony?
Yeah, sometimes when I ask questions, I already know the answer. I just want it on the public record. So I know I could contact these people and get all my answers ahead of time, but I, for one, prefer not to do it that way. I want their answers available to the public, not just to me. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comment? Darius?
I just very briefly wanted just to, again, just express my thoughts on the work of of JDOT. I'm just very impressed with the ingenuity that they bring to our roads and their work. It's clear that they do their homework, and I'm just very appreciative of the work that they do in our county. So just wanted to say thank you.
Okay, we're adjourned.